What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content daily. We also stream over on Twitch at This Is Aftersound, so come by and say hello. All right, well, I wanted to talk about some Waka Spiritblade today because I got a little action in. Oddly enough, my first day back playing daily quests was a death quest, and Waka made it significantly easier. I got to give a shout out and a thank you once again to Darkest Night for the delegation here. One of only 20 currently gold foil Waka Spiritblades in circulation, and I guess he got his fill and wanted me to give it a spin and see how it was. So that's essentially what I did. Now I'm going to share maybe one or two battles with you in which I used Waka Spiritblade and just kind of go over my initial thoughts, because a lot of these battles was me kind of punching down on lower level decks because I've been away for a bit. So once I finally got my cards back, I'm sitting at gold 3. But as you get closer to the end of the season, gold, you get some of these like silver level decks that are creeping up into gold 3. So I'll have to grind over the next couple days and work my way through. All right, so let me just play this on in the background. And again, I know it's, here I am using like a bunch of legendaries against a not even maxed out silver deck. So I think the main thing that I'm getting from Waka, though, is, and this isn't just me, I've seen this being said around Discord, but if you're just trying to splash damage all across, it does not seem to be very effective. Now, if you are trying to shoot as much at one person or focus your energy or your not energy, but your attacks against another team, that is when I feel like it comes in the most handy, right? Because again, every time you hit an opponent, it's roughly a 50% chance. So most of what I'm seeing, at least in some of these battles that I've played, and I'll just keep playing these on in the background, at least the ones that I had Waka in. But most of what I'm seeing from what I've played so far is if I just go with a regular strategy, right? If I just try to either counter my opponent, not necessarily using the summoner, but just as with what kinds of attacks that I'm thinking that they might do, then it's through monster abilities, not summoners. That's what I meant to say. Then for the most part, I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be the most effective in that way. Now, again, I will reiterate that I think one of the reasons that it's most exciting for Waka to be in the Death Splinter in general is due to the fact that the Death Splinter has some of the coolest, most powerful monsters in the game, at least in my opinion, right? Sometimes there's not as much synergy between summoner and monster because of the fact that death is primarily debuff. So what makes Waka very interesting is the fact that he is able to be somewhat offensive in your game plan and your attack, but you get to pair him up with a bunch of these awesome monsters. Like, look, I love getting backfire with Riftwing, but the last battle you saw, there was Lyra the Dark. There is Magi Necrosi is another favorite of mine. I mean, here's one with Waka. So here's one that I actually lost to Yodin, and it was probably my fault for not throwing Riftwing in there, although I don't know that I would have won even with Riftwing. So let me go ahead and just play this out. I knew they were going to play Yodin. I think this is why it was frustrating for me. It's because I knew they were going to play Yodin, and I just didn't go for Riftwing. So the rule set here was it no legendaries and Holy Protection. So I was really trying to go for offense and take people out, but you can see that sometimes, there's 0 for 2 in terms of poison. Now that one doesn't really count because he has immunity. So this is where it gets interesting again, with immunity technically being one of those counters to Waka. And as you can see, I hit someone and applied poison even though I took out all of their hit points at that point. So I don't know. It's fun to be able to pair this with a lot of the death monsters, but from what I'm seeing, it's not as overpowering as we thought it would be. And so in that, I'm not trying to downplay it. And if you bought a Waka, then I'm sure it's going to serve you well in the long run. And I think one of the interesting things that will be fun to watch as we go along is how the other splinters kind of evolve around whatever promotional cards that might come through. Because as it stands right now, there is one more Death Summoner than I believe every other Splinter, right? Because most, or at least all of the previous sets that came out or expansions that came out gave us an equal amount of summoners across all the splinters. Maybe Dragon shouldn't be counted just because Dragon might be a special case, but at least for the other 5, we've gotten them. So now that there's one extra death splinter, it just gives you that. I'm sorry, one extra death summoner. It just gives you that extra versatility. And as I keep saying, if it's one of those things where you don't necessarily need to worry about debuffing your opponent, then Waka could be a fun one where now all of a sudden you are using an offensive summoner in a way. And again, 50%, it seems like a lot, but as you can see from some of the games, and let me play one more. Here's another one that I lost, but this one's Ancient Lich that totally got me. But yeah, so it's weird because playing death has always been very debuff driven for me, at least, and I'm sure for many others. So in order to kind of plan around what monsters to play and what summoner to play, it's a very different dynamic playing someone like Waka, because now it's just like, I don't really care what the opponent's going to do. I mean, of course I do, but it's one of those things where I'm not necessarily as focused on it because I know that, my monsters might be able to do some offensive damage and stick poisons here and there. So I don't know if I could have done something differently in this game. I probably should have gone with, I don't know, maybe one less range and maybe one more magic attacker. But even still, the poison and where I was sticking poison wasn't enough. I mean, that it would have been great to stick poison actually any of these rounds, but some misses, some things here, and all of a sudden that 50% poison is not really 50%. So just some fun observations in my first couple of battles with Waka. Wanted to share with you guys because again, this is all brand new, but I'm excited for what kinds of potential combos may arise out of this. I'm sure people have been brainstorming it since Waka was first announced, but you never know what other kinds of things could pop up, especially maybe even with Rift Watchers if there is a monster or a group of monsters that come out within the Death Splinter, or neutral as well. Got to keep that in mind. Neutral, that could pair very well with what Waka is trying to do. Again, poison is powerful and can be very powerful, but it's literally hit or miss. So 50%, as of now, I wish I had a Waka. I'm not going to really comment on whether it was worth it or not, because I think the important thing when it comes to NFTs now is like, does it have value for you, right? And the scarcity aspect, and sure, I'm sure there's like a flex aspect of it as well, but I would say that the scarcity aspect is probably the bigger part. There's only going to ever be 1,000 of these, and so if you wanted to have one and you now have one, then I'm happy for you, because the price should be irrelevant. It's funny because everybody always asks, like, should I do this or should I buy this, or how much do you what do you recommend me investing in or buying? And it's like, it really just depends on what your goals are and what your individual goals are, because there's so many ways to interact with the Splinterlands ecosystem. Like, you could make a ton of money not playing a single game, just renting out cards. You can make a ton of money just buying a ton of SPS or DEC and staking it, right? Or getting the airdrops. Like, it just depends on what your goal is. And so for me, this is, everything's tied up now, because obviously I want to be a good player in the game and I want to have fun in the game. So, for some people, if they value having high level summoners and being able to poison their opponents to death, then definitely, Waka is something that I think was worthwhile. And especially it's going to have a certain amount of sentimental value due to the fact that it was the first ever of its kind of pairing a promo card with a celebrity. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this process evolves. Obviously, I want one, but I didn't want to part with 5,000 SPS in order to get one, and the 500 vouchers. But again, it's for me to look at that and say, oh, well, it wasn't really worth it. I don't think that that's fair. I'm sure other people are going to say that. I'm sure people are going to take my words and say that, but it's just, it is what it is. I wish I had one. I wasn't willing to pay the price for it, but I wish I had one. So that's all I have in the video today. If you have played with Waka or against Waka, I am very curious to hear your thoughts on how he has changed the meta. Now, granted, there's only 500 of them in circulation right now, so people shouldn't be coming across them very often. But as of, I mean, even today, like you saw with my death quest, I was kind of even forcing Waka into certain situations, right? Like playing against Yoden, I probably should have gone with someone like Quicks or maybe played Water or something. Or I couldn't play Waters, but I definitely could have played Quicks in order to kind of counteract that. But, I think Waka is going to have an interesting, I think Waka is going to have a lower than average win rate to begin with because of the fact that people are forcing him into situations like I just did in my daily quest today. So we'll see how this evolves over time, but I'll be curious to see what the numbers kind of show on that later. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of your day. I will catch you all in the next video, and I will see you around the game. Take care and have a good weekend.